Responsibility is not something a man can run from. It's not something he can negotiate with or outsourced. The moment you enter the world with ambition in your chest, the universe hands you a burden, your life, your future, your choices, and says, carry this. And the truth is, most people drop it. They put it down the first moment it feels heavy. The first moment life doesn't reward them instantly, and they spend the rest of their years wondering why nothing ever changes. But a man who becomes something, a man who becomes respected, powerful, influential, is the man who refuses to put that weight down. No matter how heavy it gets, responsibility forces you to face yourself. It strips away excuses and exposes your real character. It shows you whether you're disciplined or lazy, whether you're stable or fragile, whether you're committed or merely interested. And that's why so many avoid it. They don't want the truth. They don't want a mirror held up to their weaknesses. But if you want to rise above the average life, you must understand that responsibility is not a punishment. It's the raw material from which men are forged. You cannot be trusted, respected, or admired without it. Every great man you've ever looked up to carried more weight than the people around him, and he carried it willingly. Responsibility changes the way you walk into a room. It changes the way you speak, the way you think, the way you handle pressure. When a man knows that people rely on him, that his decisions matter, that the outcome falls on his shoulders, he rises. Because now it's not just about his emotions, it's about the mission. And that shift from feeling driven to mission driven is the moment a man evolves. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And start declaring, it must be done. Most men complain that life is unfair, but responsibility doesn't care. The world will not soften itself for you. It will not rearrange itself to accommodate your weaknesses. Life will stay exactly the same while you change or stay the same. Responsibility is the force that pushes you to grow stronger, smarter, sharper. It demands that you learn skills, build discipline, manage your emotions, and control your impulses. And what's powerful is this: responsibility doesn't just build you, it protects you. A man with discipline suffers less than a man without it. A man who takes responsibility for his health, his finances, his relationships, his future, avoids 90% of the pain others blindly walk into. You know why many men feel lost, depressed, or directionless? It's because they live a life with no weight on their shoulders. They have nothing demanding they wake up early, nothing depending on their strength, nothing forcing them to level up. A man in that state begins to decay internally. His spirit weakens. His confidence evaporates. Because without responsibility, he doesn't grow. Without growth, he cannot respect himself. And without self-respect, he cannot expect respect from anyone else. Responsibility also sharpens your focus. When you know you're the one accountable for your future, you stop wasting time. You stop engaging in pointless drama, stop chasing temporary highs, stop being distracted by things that don't move your life forward. Your standards rise automatically. You start choosing discipline over ease, self-control over impulse, purpose over pleasure. Because the mission becomes bigger than your moods. That's when you begin to see results others can't even imagine. And understand one thing clearly: responsibility is not something you wait to feel ready for. You step into it, and then you grow into it. The weight makes you stronger. The pressure builds your character. The consistency creates your identity. Responsibility is the gateway to becoming the man you secretly know you're capable of becoming. It is the first step toward respect, toward impact, toward greatness, and every moment you embrace it, you move one step closer to the life you want but haven't yet achieved. Pain is not your enemy. It's the tuition you pay for becoming someone extraordinary. Every dream, every breakthrough, every version of yourself that you admire on the horizon has a cost attached to it, and that cost is paid in discomfort. People run from pain because they think it's a sign that something is wrong. But in reality, pain is often the clearest sign that you're on the right path. Growth hurts. Evolution hurts. Leaving behind your old habits, old weaknesses, old failures, it all hurts. The man who becomes powerful is not the one who avoids pain, but the one who learns how to use it. Pain is the catalyst that wakes you up. It disrupts your comfort, breaks your illusions, and forces you to confront the truth about your life. When something hurts, failure, rejection, heartbreak, loss, it's the universe putting a mirror in front of you, asking, what will you do now? Most people crumble, complain, collapse. But the man who rises is the man who understands that pain is information. It tells you where you're soft. It exposes what you've been neglecting. It highlights what needs to change. And instead of running from that message, he listens to it. Pain is also a filter. It separates the dreamers from the doers, the pretenders from the committed. Everyone says they want success, strength, confidence, wealth, discipline, but very few are willing to pay the price. And the price is always the same: discomfort, sacrifice, consistency when nothing is happening, discipline when no one applauds you, and endurance when you feel like giving up. When you push through that pain, you enter a space where most men never go. That space is exclusive. That space is where transformation happens. Think about every moment in your life where you improved. None of it came from comfort. None of it came from an easy path. The biggest leaps in your character, your mindset, your maturity came after the hardest moments. The times you felt broken, the nights you felt alone, the days where everything went wrong, those periods didn't destroy you, they shaped you. They taught you resilience. They showed you your strength. They forced you to evolve. Pain builds a man in a way comfort never will. When you try to avoid pain, you end up living a small life. You stay in the same job, the same mindset, the same patterns, because stepping into the unknown feels uncomfortable. You tolerate disrespect, mediocrity, laziness, destructive habits, just because changing them feels painful in the moment. Comfort becomes your jail. And here's the tragedy: the pain of staying the same is far worse than the pain of growth. One keeps you weak, the other makes you powerful. One keeps you stagnant, the other makes you unstoppable. One is chosen by the majority, the other by the very few. Pain also creates clarity. When you're going through something difficult, you begin to see who you are and who the people around you are. Hard times strip away the fake, the unreliable, the uncommitted. They show you who truly has your back and who disappears the moment you stop being useful. Pain purifies your circle. It cleans out your life. It leaves you with only what matters. And sometimes that's the biggest blessing you could ask for. You start to realize that pain is not the enemy. It's the doorway. It's the passage you walk through to become the man who can carry more, lead more, achieve more, command more. The more pain you endure with purpose, the less the world can hurt you. You become harder to break. You become more focused. You become more resilient. Your threshold increases. Your confidence strengthens because now you have evidence. You survived what others couldn't. You pushed through what others avoided. You kept going when most quit. Pain is the currency every strong man has paid. It is the price of discipline, the cost of ambition, the toll of becoming someone rare. And while most people look for shortcuts, easy paths, and quick results, the man who embraces pain consistently outgrows all of them. Because he's not scared of the process. He's not scared of discomfort. He understands that pain is temporary, but the strength it builds is permanent. A woman doesn't stay because of your money, your looks, or your charm. She stays because she feels safe in your presence, grounded in your energy, certain in your leadership. Masculine presence is not about dominance, aggression, or loudness. It's the opposite. It is the calm in the storm, the strength that doesn't need to shout, the confidence that doesn't need validation. When a man develops true masculine presence, people feel it before he even speaks. A woman feels it instantly. She feels the difference between a man who is anchored and a man who is drifting. She feels who is stable and who is one decision away from breaking. Masculine presence is the energy that tells her without words, I can handle life, I can handle myself, and I can handle us. Masculine presence begins with internal order. If your mind is chaotic, your emotions unstable, your habits weak, your life direction uncertain, she feels that instability long before you do. Women are sensitive to energy, to intent, to confidence, to conviction. They can sense when a man is lost, insecure, pretending, or compensating. You cannot perform masculinity, it must be built. And the foundation of that presence is discipline. Discipline creates structure. Structure creates certainty. Certainty creates calm. And calm is what makes your presence magnetic. Women don't fall for chaos, they fall for consistency. They fall for direction. They fall for the man who knows what he's doing, where he's going, and what he stands for. A man with masculine presence moves differently. He doesn't chase validation because he validates himself through his actions. He doesn't explode emotionally because he's mastered his reactions. He doesn't need to control people He controls himself. He doesn't need every moment to go his way. He adapts and leads anyway. His energy communicates strength without force. When he walks into a room, people subconsciously scan him for cues. Is he stable? Is he predictable? Is he grounded? Is he dangerous in a controlled way? The world respects this kind of presence. Women gravitate toward it. Men follow it. Life rewards it. Women crave masculine presence because it gives them permission to relax into their own energy. She cannot be soft if you are soft. She cannot trust if you are unstable. She cannot let go if she feels she has to carry the relationship while you carry your excuses. Stability is attractive not because it's boring, but because it's rare. Most men are emotionally reactive, inconsistent with their habits, unsure about their future, easily influenced by others. A man with presence stands apart. He becomes the anchor she didn't even know she needed. When he speaks, she listens, not out of fear, but because his words carry weight. When he decides, she trusts, not because he controls her, but because his direction has proven itself through results. Masculine presence is built in the moments when no one is watching. It comes from waking up early because you said you would. It comes from hitting your goals even when you're tired. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. It comes from facing your fears instead of running from them. It comes from mastering your impulses, regulating your emotions, sharpening your discipline. Over time, this internal power radiates outward. It shows in your posture, your eye contact, your tone, your decisions. You become the man who doesn't get thrown around by life's small disruptions. You become unbothered by trivial things. You become harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to shake. A woman responds to this kind of presence with loyalty, softness, respect, and admiration. She becomes afraid to lose a man like that, not because he's controlling or intimidating, but because she knows he is not replaceable. She knows men like this are extremely rare. She knows that losing a man with this level of stability is losing a source of strength, direction, and protection that she won't find again easily. Masculine presence creates emotional safety. Emotional safety creates attachment. Attachment creates desire. Desire creates loyalty. When you cultivate masculine presence, you stop negotiating for respect. You stop begging for love. You stop chasing validation. Everything you were trying to force begins to flow naturally. People treat you differently because you treat yourself differently. The world reflects the stability you've built within. A woman stays not because you trap her, but because your presence makes her life better, calmer, more certain, more feminine. She stays because your energy gives her something she does not want to lose. She stays because your presence makes her feel like she is with a man, not a boy pretending to be one. Strength is one of the most misunderstood qualities of a man. Most people think strength is about how loud you can be, how tough you look, how much weight you can lift, or how intimidating you appear. But real strength has nothing to do with the image you try to project. Real strength is measured by what you can carry without collapsing. It's measured by your tolerance, your capacity, your emotional endurance. A strong man isn't the one who boasts about being strong. He's the one who survives everything life throws at him without breaking. A strong man is quiet not because he is weak, but because he has faced storms most people will never understand. The world tries to test you constantly. Challenges, losses, failures, heartbreaks, betrayals, they come at you one after the other. Most men complain about these things, but a strong man welcomes them because he understands that every difficult moment is an opportunity to increase his capacity. Strength is not built in moments of comfort. It's built in moments of pressure, stress, and uncertainty. When life hits you hard and you keep moving, even if it's slow, even if you feel exhausted, even if no one believes in you, that is strength. When you refuse to stay down after being knocked down, that is strength. When you choose to stay disciplined, even when your emotions are pulling you in every direction, that is strength. When you continue to lead despite being tired, discouraged, or misunderstood, that is strength. A woman notices this strength in ways you don't even realize. She may not articulate it, but she feels it. She feels it when things go wrong and you don't panic. She feels it when life gets heavy and you hold it together instead of crumbling under the pressure. She feels it when you stay calm during chaos, when you think rather than react, when you choose action over excuses. A woman becomes afraid to lose a man like that, not because he demands respect, but because he earns it through the way he handles life. Strength isn't about being emotionless. It's about staying steady even when emotions are loud. It's about maintaining clarity when others would lose control. Strength also comes from responsibility. Weak men avoid responsibility because they fear failure. Strong men take responsibility because they know it grows them. Responsibility forces you to stretch your capacity, sharpen your discipline, and expand your limits. When you carry responsibilities, your work, your health, your purpose, your leadership, you become someone dependable. And dependability is one of the strongest forms of masculine power. People trust you. Women trust you. They know you won't fold when it matters. They know you won't disappear when things get tough. They know you're not just strong when conditions are easy. You're strong when everything is falling apart. A strong man endures what others escape. He confronts what others ignore. He finishes what others abandon. His endurance comes from his mindset. When he sees pressure, he sees opportunity. When he sees difficulty, he sees growth. When he sees pain, he sees transformation. He redefines the meaning of hardship. He doesn't get upset when life becomes challenging, he expects it. He doesn't get surprised when obstacles appear, he prepares for them. And this mindset gives him an edge over everyone else. While other men crumble under the weight of their circumstances, he becomes stronger because of them. Endurance also builds self-respect. When you push through things you thought would break you, you gain a level of confidence you can't fake. You begin to trust yourself deeply because you've tested yourself deeply. That trust becomes part of your energy. It shows in your posture, your tone, your decisions, your presence. When a man trusts himself, the world can sense it. A woman senses it more than anyone. And that trust makes her feel safe, protected, and drawn to you. A man who has endured more than the average man is impossible to replace. His strength is rare. His stability is rare. His mindset is rare. Strength is not loud. Strength is not performative. Strength is not superficial. Strength is your ability to endure pressure without losing your direction. Strength is your ability to remain calm when others panic. Strength is your ability to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. Strength is surviving what should have broken you. And when you develop that kind of strength, people feel it long before they ever see it. A man can talk all day about who he wants to become, what he plans to achieve, where he sees himself in the future, but none of it means anything without movement. A man's value is not measured by how good he sounds, it's measured by how far he's actually willing to go. Promises are easy, words are cheap. Anyone can say they'll change tomorrow. Anyone can talk about future goals, future discipline, future success. But the man who separates himself from the rest is the one who moves, even if it's slow, even if it's uncomfortable, even if he's unsure. Progress is what gives you power. Progress is what builds your identity. Progress is what makes the world take you seriously. And here's the truth most men avoid facing. Women don't fall in love with your potential. They fall in love with your progress. They fall in love with the man you're becoming, not the man you keep talking about. A woman becomes afraid to lose a man, not because he sells her dreams, but because he shows her real steps toward becoming the man he envisions. When she sees you building, improving, evolving, she feels secure. She feels that she's aligning her life with someone who is going somewhere. She feels proud to stand beside a man who doesn't just talk about change, he creates it. Progress gives you something that promises never will: credibility. When you take action, you build a record, you create evidence, you gather proof of who you are. Every small step forward becomes a deposit in your identity. Over time, that identity becomes unshakable because it's built on work, not fantasy. You start seeing yourself differently. You stop identifying with the weak version of you, the inconsistent version, the emotional version. You begin to see yourself as someone capable, disciplined, reliable. That shift transforms everything about your energy. It shows in the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you make decisions. People sense it. Women sense it even faster. Progress also changes the way you value your time. When you start moving forward, you stop entertaining distractions. You stop wasting hours on things that don't grow you. You stop letting people pull you into nonsense. Progress sharpens your focus. You begin to understand that your life is too valuable to waste on excuses. The moment you start making real moves, mediocrity becomes uncomfortable. Laziness becomes irritating. Stagnation feels like death. Movement becomes your oxygen. And when you operate at that level, you become a different kind of man, rare, disciplined, driven. A man like that doesn't need to convince anyone of his worth. His actions speak for him. A woman watching a man like that feels something she won't feel with a man who only talks. She feels admiration. Admiration is the foundation of attraction. Without admiration, there is no respect. Without respect, there is no desire. Without desire, there is no loyalty. You don't earn admiration through promises. You earn it by showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it. You earn it by doing the difficult things you said you would do. You earn it by becoming more capable this month than you were last month. A man who improves consistently becomes a man who doesn't need to chase anything. Opportunities, relationships, respect, success, they come to him because progress is magnetic, but progress requires sacrifice. You can't move forward while holding on to the same habits, same environment, same excuses. You can't talk about leveling up while staying attached to everything that keeps you down. Progress forces you to outgrow people. Progress forces you to break your comfort zones. Progress forces you to confront weaknesses you've been avoiding. It's not always pretty. It's not always exciting, but it's always worth it. Every day you move, even just a little, the gap widens between who you were and who you're becoming. That gap becomes your advantage. That gap becomes your confidence. That gap becomes the reason others begin to respect you. A man who is progressing becomes unpredictable in the best way. He becomes a moving target, impossible to pin down, impossible to control, impossible to replace. When a woman sees that, she feels a sense of urgency. Not insecurity, urgency. She knows she's with a man who will be significantly better in 6 months than he is today. She knows men like that don't stay single for long. She knows men like that don't get overlooked. She knows men like that are rare. Progress turns you from an option into a priority. Not because you demand it, but because you're evolving into a man whose value increases with time. Promises don't build fear of loss. Progress does. Promises don't create attraction. Progress does. Promises don't build your identity. Progress does. When you move even a little, you become the man others can't ignore. The man others look up to. The man she refuses to lose. Detachment is not about caring less. It's about not collapsing when something doesn't go your way. A man who is detached is not cold, heartless, or emotionless. He is simply in control of himself. He does not depend on anyone to feel complete. He does not build his identity around approval. He does not cling out of fear. Detachment means you choose someone because you want them, not because you need them. That difference changes everything about your energy. That difference is what makes a woman afraid to lose you. Because a man who doesn't need her to survive is a man she values differently. Neediness is the opposite. Neediness suffocates attraction. It destroys respect. It pushes people away. When a man becomes too attached to the outcome, too desperate for someone's attention, too emotionally dependent on a person, he loses his edge. He becomes predictable, reactive, insecure. A woman can feel it instantly. She can feel when a man is clinging to her because he doesn't trust himself. She can feel when his emotions are tied to her decisions instead of his own purpose. And the moment she senses that dependence, her instinct to pull back activates. Not because she wants to hurt him, but because women naturally distance themselves from men who cannot lead themselves. Detachment is powerful because it puts you in control of your life. When you're detached, you make decisions based on what's right, not what's comfortable. You walk away from disrespect. You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't fold. You don't make excuses for behavior that drains you. Your self-worth becomes non-negotiable. You're willing to lose people rather than lose yourself. And that energy speaks louder than any words. When a woman sees a man who can walk away rather than tolerate nonsense, she sees a man with standards. She sees a man with direction. She sees a man who values himself. That is rare. That is powerful. That is unforgettable. Detachment also sharpens your focus. When you're not consumed by fear of losing someone, you have time, energy, and clarity to put into your mission. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes. You're not worrying about every little shift in someone's mood. You're not analyzing every text. Your mind becomes spacious. Your life starts moving again. You become productive, disciplined, consistent. You start doing the things you were neglecting. your body, your career, your ambitions, your goals. And as you focus on yourself, something interesting happens. Your value rises. Your energy gets stronger. Your presence becomes firmer. You become more attractive without even trying. A woman notices the shift immediately. She feels when a man is prioritizing his purpose over his emotions. She feels when she is not the center of his universe, but in addition to it. She feels when he is whole without her. That's the moment she starts fearing loss, not because you're threatening her or manipulating her, but because she knows men like that are rare. A man who is fulfilled on his own is not easily controlled, not easily swayed, not easily replaced. His life is already full. She is the bonus, not the foundation. That dynamic changes everything. Detachment builds emotional strength. You begin to understand that no one person defines your life. No single relationship determines your worth. No temporary loss destroys your future. You start seeing relationships differently, not as something to cling to, but as something to enjoy. You become calm. You become stable. You become selective. You stop giving access to people who drain you. You stop tolerating inconsistency. You stop falling for potential. Detachment allows you to see people clearly because you're no longer blinded by fear or desperation.